January 26th, 1966. 3 children board a bus to Glenelg Beach in Adelaide, Australia. Jane, 9 years old, Arnna, 7, and Grant, 4. They carry towels, swimsuits, and pocket change for ice cream. By nightfall, they have vanished without a trace. But here is what makes this case extraordinary. Multiple witnesses saw the children throughout the day, laughing and playing with a tall, blonde stranger on the beach. They appeared comfortable with him, happy even, purchasing pastries with money their parents never gave them. The man smiled, the children smiled back, and then all 4 disappeared into the Australian summer heat, leaving behind a mystery that would haunt a nation for nearly 60 years and transform how an entire country raised its children. What happened in those final hours? How do 3 children vanish from a crowded public beach in black daylight while appearing to trust their abductor completely? Australia in 1966 exists in a state of perceived safety that seems almost unimaginable to modern sensibilities. Doors remain unlocked. Children roam neighborhoods without supervision. Parents send their young ones on buses and trains with casual confidence that they will return home safely at the appointed hour. Adelaide, the capital of South Australia, embodies this sense of security perhaps more completely than any other major city in the country. The streets are clean, the beaches pristine, the crime rate negligible enough that violent incidents shock rather than merely concern the community. The Beaumont family lives in Somerton Park, a quiet suburb approximately 3 kilometers from Glenelg Beach. Jim Beaumont works as a taxi driver, maintaining odd hours that require him to sleep during the day. Nancy Beaumont manages the household and cares for their 3 children with the particular diligence of a mother in an era when raising children is considered a full-time profession requiring no justification or explanation. Jane, the eldest at 9 years old, has been taught to look after her younger siblings. She takes this responsibility seriously, understanding that her parents trust her to keep Arnna and Grant safe during their excursions. January 26, 1966 is Australia Day, a national holiday celebrating the founding of the nation. Schools are closed, businesses operate on reduced schedules. Families plan picnics and beach outings, taking advantage of the summer weather and the collective day off from normal routines. For the Beaumont family, the plan is simple and familiar. They will take the bus to Glenelg Beach, spend the day swimming and playing in the sand, and return home in the afternoon bus in time for dinner. They have made this journey many times before without incident. The route is straightforward. The beach well populated and considered safe, the expectations clear. Around 8:30 in the morning, Nancy Beaumont watches her 3 children prepare for their beach day. Jane wears her responsibilities visibly, checking that Arnna and Grant have their towels and swimsuits, that everyone has applied sunscreen, that the younger children understand they must stay together and not wander off. Nancy hands Jane some coins for the bus fare and for purchasing lunch, meat pies or pastries from one of the beachfront shops. The amount is modest but sufficient for 3 children to feed themselves adequately. She reminds them to catch the noon bus home, emphasizing the importance of being punctual so that Jim can sleep undisturbed during his daytime rest period before his evening taxi shift. The children leave the house in good spirits, walking the short distance to the bus stop. Neighbors later recall seeing them waiting for the bus, Jane standing slightly apart from her siblings in the manner of someone taking her supervisory role seriously. Arnna and Grant chattering excitedly about the beach and the promised day of freedom. The bus arrives on schedule. The children board, paying their fares from the coins their mother provided, and find seats as the vehicle begins its route towards Glenelg. Other passengers remember seeing 3 well-behaved children who caused no disturbance and seemed entirely ordinary in every respect in any way, shape, or form. Glenelg Beach on Australia Day morning is crowded, but not uncomfortably so. Families claim spots on the sand, spreading blankets and setting up umbrellas against the intensifying summer sun. Children run toward the water while parents unpack food and settle into hours of relaxation and supervision. The Beaumont children arrive around 10 o'clock, having made the bus journey without incident. Witnesses place them on the beach during the late morning hours, playing in the sand and the shallow water, behaving exactly as expected for children their ages enjoying a holiday at the seaside. Around 11 a.m., the narrative of an ordinary beach day begins to shift in ways that will only become clear in retrospect. Multiple witnesses later report seeing the Beaumont children in the company of a man who does not fit the profile of a family member or known guardian. Descriptions vary slightly in details but converge on certain consistent characteristics. He is tall, perhaps 6 feet or slightly taller. His hair is blonde and worn in a style unremarkable for the era. His build is described as thin to athletic, not heavily muscled, but possessing the lean strength of someone physically active. His age is estimated variously between late 20s and early 30s, young enough to move easily, but old enough to command a certain adult authority. What troubles investigators most when they later piece together witness statements is not merely the man's presence, but the nature of his interaction with the children. Jane, Arnna, and Grant appear comfortable with him, even affectionate. They do not exhibit the shy wariness that typically characterizes children encountering strangers. Instead, they laugh and play with him as they might with a family friend or relative. Witnesses describe seeing him playing with the children in the water, lifting them and tossing them playfully as they shriek with delight. On the beach, he kneels in the sand, helping them build structures, engaging with them in the absorbed manner of someone genuinely interested in their games, rather than merely tolerating child activity. At Wenzel's Bakery, a shop located near the beach that serves pastries and light meals, staff members remember the children entering around 11 a.m. They are not alone. The tall, blond man accompanies them, standing slightly behind as Jane approaches the counter to make purchases. She orders meat pies for herself and her siblings, a normal enough request. But when she pays, the bakery worker notices something unusual. Jane produces a £1 note, a denomination significantly larger than what her parents would typically give children for a day trip. The bakery worker makes change and hands the children their purchases. They leave the shop, eating the pies, the man following them out and walking with them back toward the beach. This detail, the £1 note, will become crucial to understanding what may have happened. Nancy Beaumont knows precisely how much money she gave her children that morning. The amount was sufficient for bus fare and simple food, but did not include a £1 note. Where did Jane obtain this money? The most likely explanation is that the man gave it to them, but this raises its own troubling questions. Why would a stranger give 3 children money? What might he have expected in return? Or had the children perhaps spent time with this man before, developed enough familiarity that accepting money from him seemed normal rather than alarming? Around noon, the time when the children are expected to catch their bus home, witnesses see them still on the beach. They are no longer with the man, or at least he is no longer visible in the observations that will later be documented. The children appear to be preparing to leave, gathering their belongings and shaking sand from their towels. But they do not walk toward the bus stop. Instead, they move in a different direction,
away from the area where buses collect passengers. Multiple witnesses notice this but think nothing of it at the time. Perhaps the children have decided to explore another part of the beach. Perhaps they have simply lost track of time and will catch a later bus. No one intervenes because the children do not appear to be in distress. They seem purposeful in their movements, as if following a plan or responding to instructions. And then they are gone. Not dramatically or suddenly, but in the gradual way that people disappear in crowds, their presence simply noted and then no longer noticed until later when absence becomes significant. At some point between noon and 1 o'clock in the afternoon, Jane, Arnna, and Grant Beaumont cease to be visible on Glenelg Beach or in the surrounding area. No one reports seeing them board a bus. No one recalls them walking along the streets that lead away from the beach. No one observes them getting into a vehicle, though the absence of such an observation does not mean it did not occur. People see cars and children constantly in beach areas and register none of it as remarkable unless given reason to pay attention.
Jim Beaumont wakes from his daytime sleep around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, emerging from his bedroom expecting to hear his children's voices, to smell whatever simple dinner Nancy has prepared, to resume the normal rhythms of family life before departing for his evening taxi shift. Instead, he finds Nancy alone in the kitchen, her face tight with worry that is beginning to shade into fear. The children are not home. They missed the noon bus, but Nancy had told herself they must have decided to catch the later 1 o'clock bus, that Jane had let them stay longer to enjoy the holiday. But the 1 o'clock bus has come and gone, and still the children have not appeared. Jim suggests reasonable explanations. Perhaps they missed the bus and are walking home. Perhaps they stopped at a friend's house along the way. Perhaps Jane, usually so responsible, simply lost track of time in the excitement of the beach day. But even as he offers these reassurances, doubt creeps into his voice. Jane would not be this late without finding a way to send word. She understands that her father needs sleep, that tardiness disrupts the household routine, that her mother would worry. Nancy nods, but her expression suggests she is beyond the comfort of rational explanations. Something feels wrong, in the way that mothers sometimes know things without evidence, an instinct that cannot be dismissed, even when logic argues against it. By 5 o'clock in the afternoon, both parents are actively searching. Jim drives his taxi along the route the children would have taken from the bus stop to home, scanning sidewalks and parks for any sign of them. Nancy contacts neighbors and friends, asking if anyone has seen the children, if they perhaps stopped to visit and lost track of time. Each call yields nothing. No one has seen Jane, Arnna, or Grant since they boarded the morning bus to Glenelg. The sun begins its descent toward the horizon, the end of day approaching, and this summer evening, even though warm, is marked by the lengthening shadows that signal the approaching end of day. 3 small children are somewhere other than home, and with each passing hour, the possible explanations narrow toward outcomes no parent wants to contemplate. At 7 o'clock in the evening, Nancy Beaumont makes the call that will set in motion one of the largest police investigations in Australian history. She contacts the local police station and reports her 3 children missing. The responding officer takes down the details with the careful attention that experienced law enforcement brings to cases involving children. Names, ages, descriptions, last known location and time, what they were wearing: Jane in a floral dress, Arnna in shorts and a shirt, Grant in swimming trunks and a light top. The officer asks the difficult questions, gently but directly. Is there any possibility the children ran away?
Have there been family problems that might cause them to hide or refuse to come home? Nancy's answers are emphatic. Her children are happy. They have no reason to run away. Jane takes her responsibilities seriously. Something has happened to prevent them from returning. The police begin their response that evening, but the full weight of institutional concern will not mobilize until the following day, when it becomes undeniable that this is not a case of children who stayed out too late or got lost and spent a night sheltering somewhere before finding their way home in the morning. By the next afternoon, when the children remain missing, despite police officers checking hospitals and speaking with witnesses at Glenelg Beach, the investigation escalates dramatically. Detectives arrive at the Beaumont home to conduct detailed interviews. Search teams organize to comb the beach and surrounding areas. The media learns of the missing children and begins the coverage that will dominate Australian newspapers for months. Witnesses come forward with accounts of seeing the children on the beach, of observing them with the tall blond man, of serving them at the bakery. Each piece of information is documented and cross-referenced. Police work with witnesses to develop a composite sketch of the man, producing an image that will be distributed nationwide in the hope that someone will recognize him and come forward with information. The sketch shows a thin-faced man with light hair, unremarkable in features, but possessing the kind of average appearance that makes identification difficult because he could be thousands of different men. The search effort expands beyond anything Adelaide has previously mounted for missing children. Police officers, emergency service volunteers, and civilian searchers comb Glenelg Beach, checking every dune and drainage pipe, every abandoned building and vehicle, every space large enough to conceal 3 small bodies. Divers search the waters offshore, though the currents and the time elapsed make the likelihood of finding anything in the ocean remote. The investigation consumes hundreds of man-hours daily, as authorities refuse to scale back the effort despite the growing probability that the children are not longer in the immediate area.
The disappearance of the Beaumont children marks a watershed moment in Australian social history, a dividing line between before and after that older Australians still reference when discussing childhood safety. Before January 26, 1966, parents sent their children to beaches and parks with casual confidence. After the Beaumont case, that confidence evaporated, replaced with vigilance and fear that has only intensified in subsequent decades. The case fundamentally altered how Australians parent their children, introducing suspicion of strangers and restriction of childhood freedom that previous generations would have found incomprehensible. The media coverage of the disappearance contributes significantly to this cultural transformation. Newspapers run daily updates on the search efforts, keeping the case constantly before the public. Television programs feature appeals from Jim and Nancy Beaumont, their faces etched with grief and desperate hope that someone will come forward with information. The images of 3 missing children become seared into the national consciousness, particularly the photograph of them that appears in countless publications. Jane, Arnna, and Grant standing together, smiling, embodying innocence that has been violated in the most profound way possible. Jim and Nancy Beaumont dedicate the remainder of their lives to searching for answers about what happened to their children. They follow every lead, no matter how improbable, speak with psychics and private investigators, respond to every letter and phone call that claims to have information. The strain destroys their marriage, though both continue independently to pursue any possibility that might bring resolution.
Nancy lives into her 90s, dying in 2019 without ever learning the fate of her children. Jim passes away in 2024 at age 90, having spent 58 years hoping for answers that never came. The case spawns changes in law enforcement procedures and public policy. Milk cartons begin featuring photographs of missing children, a practice that starts in Australia partly in response to the Beaumont disappearance. Amber Alert systems developed protocols that might have helped in 1966 had the technology and infrastructure existed. Parents teach their children about stranger danger with a fervor that transforms how young people navigate public spaces. The freedom that Jane, Arnna, and Grant enjoyed, taking public transportation to the beach unsupervised, becomes unthinkable for subsequent generations of Australian children.
Nearly 60 years after Jane, Arnna, and Grant Beaumont vanished from Glenelg Beach in Adelaide, their case remains officially unsolved and actively investigated. The South Australia Police maintain a dedicated team that reviews cold cases, and the Beaumont children continue to be one of the highest priority files. Each year brings new tips and renewed searches, most leading nowhere, but all pursued because the possibility of finally solving this case justifies extraordinary effort. What happened on that summer day in 1966 remains fundamentally mysterious, despite decades of investigation and thousands of hours of detective work. 3 children entered a crowded public space in broad daylight. They were seen by dozens of witnesses. They appeared to be enjoying themselves, showing no signs of distress or fear. And then they ceased to exist in any documented form. No bodies were found. No reliable sightings occurred after the early afternoon. No physical evidence emerged that could definitively establish what happened or who was responsible. The mystery endures in public consciousness because it touches something primal about human vulnerability and parental fear. Every parent understands the Beaumonts' nightmare at some visceral level. The moment when a child should be home, but is not. The escalating dread as minutes become hours. The terrible transition from worry to certainty that something irreversible has occurred. The photograph of Jane, Arnna, and Grant Beaumont standing together represents every parent's worst fear made manifest. Innocence destroyed by an evil that operated openly in the sunlight of a summer beach day. Perhaps the children were buried somewhere that has never been searched, despite the extensive efforts over nearly 60 decades. Perhaps their remains lie in water that will never surrender them. Perhaps they were taken far from Adelaide and disposed of in locations that have no connection to the investigation or the searches that followed. Perhaps the tall blonde man acted alone, or perhaps he had accomplices who have maintained silence for lifetimes. Perhaps he is dead now, having escaped justice through mortality. Or perhaps he still lives, an old man carrying secrets he has never shared. The mystery persists not because investigators have failed to pursue leads, but because the leads themselves dissolve into uncertainty when examined. Every suspect has been investigated. Every theory has been explored. Every location suggested as a possible burial site has been searched when resources and circumstances permitted. The file contains thousands of pages documenting 60 decades of effort. And yet, the fundamental questions remain unanswered. What happened to Jane, Arnna, and Grant Beaumont? Who took them? Where are their bodies? Will anyone ever be held accountable for their deaths? Australia lost more than 3 children on January 26, 1966. The nation lost its innocence, its sense of safety,
its belief that children could play freely without constant fear of predators lurking among the crowds of ordinary people going about their ordinary lives. The Beaumont children represent every missing child, every unsolved disappearance, every family that lives forever in the terrible limbo of not knowing. Their names echo through Australian history as a reminder that evil can work in plain sight, that trust can be fatally misplaced, and that some mysteries may never yield their secrets no matter how desperately we seek answers. Every cold case has an echo. Are you listening? Subscribe to join our global community of investigators. Don't let the truth fade away.